I beat Pokemon Alpha Sapphire using only Champion Wallace's team and their canon moves. I have 13 majestic Pokemon to catch, and here's how that went. Leaving Little Root Town, Professor Birch drops his briefcase and needs our help. Fortunately for us, he has our first encounter. In the anime and in the Pokemon World Tournament, Wallace has a Swampert, so I choose Mudkip. I easily defeat a wild Poochyena and name our friend Anne. Now, let's find May to finish the tutorials. Unfortunately, this is where one of my rules sabotages me. See, I need to use Swampert's canon moves, and he only has 4. Muddy Water, Focus Blast, Ice Beam, and Earth Power. Anne doesn't know any of these, so now I have to level her up until she learns one of these moves, which is after she evolves into Swampert. That leaves me with 2 options. 1, I can spend probably 30 or so hours grinding against level 2 and level 3 Pokemon until I get Swampert. Or option 2, I can use my particular set of skills I've acquired over a very long career, to set her level and effort values. For the sake of time and sanity, I choose option 2. Though I did learn that Muddy Water comes at level 39 in Gen 6 instead of 36 in Gen 3, so that's neat, I guess. May wants to battle to progress the story, and, unsurprisingly, her Trico doesn't stand a chance. She commends me for being pretty good, which is a grievous understatement of how thoroughly and magnificently I defeated her Trico. We head back to the professor, who likewise understates my prowess. It must run in the family or something. Anyway, May gives me some Pokeballs and allows me to leave town for good. On Route 101, May stops us to show us a cool new feature, Hidden Pokemon. This is a cool way to hunt for shinies, perfect IVs, and egg moves. With that knowledge in mind, I give this Poochyena a mud bath and move on. This takes us to Route 102, where I can find our next encounter. There's a guaranteed hidden Lotad in the next patch of grass, so I catch the cute little Mon. But I don't nickname her because I have a plan. You see, I can greatly increase the chances of finding a shiny right now. So I'm gonna shiny hunt for the first time in my life until I find a Lotad. Am I insane? Probably. Will it be worth it? Also probably. So there are 2 ways to shiny hunt right now, Hordes and Hidden Pokemon. First, with Hordes, you can use Sweet Scent to force a Horde to appear. This is a wild encounter with 5 Pokemon simultaneously, which effectively increases your odds from 1 in 4096 to about 1 in 800. Not too bad, but also not too good. Then there's the Dex Nav. When you chain encounters on the Dex Nav, your shiny odds go up quite a lot. The exact increase depends primarily on your chain length and the Pokemon's encounter level, with special boosts every 5 encounters. This also increases the odds of finding a Pokemon with an egg move, with its hidden ability, with perfect IVs, and sometimes an insane level advantage. To get the full experience, I do a bit of both. I challenge Hordes until I run out of Muddy Water, and then I change the Dex Nav until I run out of Power Points. Disclaimer, I don't like shiny hunting. I don't even really like shinies. Anything that's luck-based is overrated in my opinion. Plus, so many shinies are so mid. But I'm committing to 1,000 encounters before I have to send PM7 a strongly worded email and force a shiny. So, 14 hours later, I go into one final encounter, and it's my shiny Lotad! This took me 925 encounters, so getting right on up there close to 1,000. Plus, it gives me a huge hit of dopamine. Am I a shiny hunter now? Let me know in the comments if I should be doing some of that. Anyway, this is my second team member. I name him Mr. Barkin after my first Patreon supporter and loyal commenter on the channel, Mr. Barkin. Thanks so much for your support, buddy, and I hope you like shiny Lotad. Also, if you want a Pokemon named after you, follow the link in the description to check out my Patreon. Now I can finally move on with the plot. I help Wally catch a plain old ordinary Ralts, just an easy 1% encounter. Bro ain't even trying to play. Speaking of playing, don't forget that my moves are limited to Wallace's canon moves. So here's a list of Lotad's legal moves for your reference. Checking Barkin's moves, he can only use Absorb right now, since it's a weaker version of Giga Drain. But when Barkin learns Bubble, that move is illegal because it isn't a weaker version of a canon move. I then defeat Rich Boy Winston, #EatTheRich, and have our first encounter with Team Aqua. Barkin handles both with ease. We also encounter the first double battle in the franchise, at least in the original games. And our poor opponents have to face our monstrous Swampert alongside our shiny little friend. These two together is like a buddy cop sitcom. I like to picture Swampert towering above the twins with a tiny little shiny Lotad on her head. That brings us to Rustboro City, where we can challenge our first gym. Barkin reaches level 14 against the warm-up trainers, which allows him to evolve into Lombre. Honestly, this shiny is a vibe. I like it. That clears the way for us to challenge Roxanne. Sure, I could clown on her with Anne's Muddy Water, but there's also not much I can do to make this an exciting battle. Absorb only has 30 base power after stab, but Geodude still only survives thanks to Sturdy. It's almost not worth showing. Harace is Nosepass, who outspeeds Barkin thanks to his minus speed nature. However, that also means that she'll never go for Rock Tomb, meaning victory is just a few absorbs away. Leaving the gym, we learn that the Aqua Grunt is back causing trouble. I sneak past all the trainers on the next route to save them for later, then head into Resturf Tunnel. Barkin easily defeats his dog again, and that introduces us to Briny. He has magnificent taste in Pokemon, and he has a ship. He's my new favorite character. I quickly find his home on Route 104, where Briny offers to take us to our next destination, and I accept immediately. Cue the incredible sensation of riding at the prow of the ship. The wind whipping in my hair, the spray of water on my face, the sparkling sunshine reflecting all around me, the sheer proximity and abundance of water-type Pokemon. It's a top 5 moment in my life for sure. And when we land at Dewford, I soak it in on the beach for a little bit longer. Now, my next order of business is to talk to this fine gentleman and receive an Old Rod. I put it to use immediately for my next 2 encounters. First is a Magikarp whom I capture and name George. He has no legal moves until learning Bite upon evolution, unfortunately. And second is Tentacool, whom I name Edward and add to the team. He also has no useful moves until level 34 as per my rules. Poison Sting, Acid, and Acid Spray are not weaker versions of Sludge or Sludge Wave. So neither is useful right now, but with a few levels, they'll be powerful members of the team. I do some quick grinding against Wrench Boy Winston, which allows Barkin to learn Fake Out, one of his completely legit moves, and a second attacking move for him. Nice. Other than that, there's nothing to do here but challenge the Dewford Gym. Again, I could clown on Brawley with Anne, but I'm going to overcome him with my boy Barkin. But first, we have to talk about level up moves. Barkin here is level 20, and his strongest moves are Absorb and Bubble, the latter of which I can't even use. Looking at his learn set, he doesn't learn any other grass moves by level up at all. Now, compare that to Lotad, who learns Mega Drain, Giga Drain, and Energy Ball. This, in my expert opinion, is absolute nonsense. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to teach Barkin these moves 2 to 3 levels after Lotad would learn them to account for the evolution. If you're not a fan of that, let me know in the comments down below and we'll make some modifications going forward. Anyway, let's take on Brawley. Unfortunately for him, I'm a future champion, so he doesn't really stand a chance. Machop is flinched by Fake Out, then finished off by Mega Drain. Makuhita only manages to throw some Pocket Sand before falling to double Mega Drains. Admittedly, I'm overleveled here, but there's nothing else for me to do when I have to use their canon moves. We'll see how Watson goes. Before that, we have to visit Granite Cave, where we run into our real rival. Master of Rock and Steel Pokemon and pretty boy extraordinaire, Steven Stone. He introduces himself, then taunts us with a TM that we can never use. I see what you're doing, pretty boy, and I'm coming for you. Our next objective is to sail away with Mr. Briny again. Love it, no notes. With that done, we can move on. I was going to say there are no encounters in this section, but I realized that I missed one. So I sail back to Petalburg City and start fishing. Before long, I pull up a Goldeen. This will be Charles. And after leveling him up to 16, I get another useful move in Water Pulse. That gives me a total of 4 usable moves right now. Thank Arceus. Oh, and Charles' stats here jump a bunch when he levels up because of how PK Hex for Web updates his level and his EVs. It doesn't recalculate their stats, so the game just does it when you level up next. It's a little bit weird, so if you ever see that happening again, that's what's going on. Back in Slateport, I head to the Oceanic Museum, being a big fan of the ocean. I pay my entrance fee, but the place is full of those Team Aqua rowdies. What on earth is happening here? I head upstairs to investigate further, find Captain Stern, and am accosted by 2 more rowdies. Charles and Barkin easily fend them off, though Charles faints in the process. This seems like a good time to remind everyone that this is not a hardcore Nuzlocke, or any kind of lock, really. I'm just playing as if I'm Wallace. So I'll heal Charles and let him continue fighting. After all, Anne exceeded nearly every gym's level cap before I even caught Barkin. Anyway, this lead rowdy Archie comes in, and I don't think I ever really paid attention to what he says, having played these games for the first time 20 years ago. But he's what I would describe as a radically naturalistic terrorist. He cares for the environment deeply, but he also doesn't seem to care if people die so that he can protect Pokemon. That's pretty intense for a children's game. But that's a problem for future Wallace. Archie leaves with his goons, and Stern leaves with the Devon parts. That leaves us to continue our journey. The team and I run into May on the next route, who wants a rematch. We both have expanded our teams, but I also only have 4 usable moves. I have to use Anne to defeat her Grovyle, but she's a legit member of the team, even if she's been warming the bench for a while. If I could use Edward, her Gecko wouldn't stand a chance anyway. But we beat her, allowing us to move on to Mauville City. Along the way, George evolves into Gyarados and learns Bite. This may be a bit controversial because Bite and Crunch have different secondary effects, but I'm considering Bite to be a weaker version, so now I have 5 usable moves. Ho ho ho! Speaking of moves, I head straight to the Pokemart to check out their available TMs, and none of them are usable by any member of our team, current or future. Oh, Wally's also here. He wants to battle to prove to his uncle that he can take on Watson. Unfortunately for him, Barkin is just too OP and easily defeats his Ralts. But he's got some good potential. I'm sure he'll be a magnificent rival throughout the rest of the game. There's not much else of importance to do here. I could get a bike, but that's a bit too pedestrian for me. So I just head to the gym to take on my second biggest challenge so far, Watson. First to battle is George, facing a Magnemite. Bite causes a flinch, allowing me to finish him off on the following turn. Easy peasy. Second is Voltorb. Another bite deals massive damage, but the fake Ash Ball gets to retaliate and swap out with Volt Switch. This brings in Watson's ace Magneton. Hoping for a flinch, George bites the bigger magnet, but Magneton doesn't flinch, instead defeating George and swapping back to Voltorb with Volt Switch. For the sake of challenge, I send out Charles. Watson heals Voltorb, but then he just starts going for non-damage moves. I assume he doesn't see a KO, so he's trying to confuse Charles and set up for a future Volt Switch. But Voltorb doesn't survive long enough to do that, falling to Water Pulse a few turns later. That leaves Watson with just his ace. I stay in and go for Water Pulse. Surprisingly, Watson continues to try non-damaging moves, missing with Supersonic. And ironically, Charles confuses Magneton with Water Pulse, which he's done an astonishing number of times off-screen. Magneton never hits themselves, but they also never hit Charles before fainting, just like Voltorb. That earns me my 3rd badge with my 2nd-tier team members. The next stretch of the game is relatively uneventful. We explore under a volcano and learn to make secret hideouts. The latter requires us to spend entirely too much time talking to Arun, who dubs himself Uncle Arun. What a creep. I'd rather be buried alive in volcanic ash than talk to him ever again. Oh, perfect. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to rant a bit. The next route has a huge body of water, with several fishermen hanging around. Don't you think this would be a perfect spot to receive the Good Rod? I think it would be. This is the first major body of water we've encountered since Dewford Town, where we got the Old Rod. But Nintendo apparently doesn't think so. Instead, they elected to wait until after defeating Norman to give us the Good Rod. And on top of that, you have to use Surf to get it. That means that you need to catch one of only like 4 Water-type Pokemon in order to use that HM before you can even get the Good Rod. Only after committing to a Surfing Pokemon do you get access to some of the best Water-type Pokemon in the game. Which to me is just bad game design. At the very least, give us the Good Rod somewhere accessible without Surf. Let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, rant done. That brings us all the way to Meteor Falls, where we run into May again. This is actually the 4th encounter with her since defeating Watson. I just left all the others off screen. Anyway, she needs help fending off Team Aqua, who have kidnapped a professor and have some nefarious plans for a piece of meteorite. The battle is quite easy, even with George's best attack being Bite against 2 Dark-type Pokemon. Team Aqua just refuses to attack my Pokemon. From the bench, Charles learns Fury Attack, giving him 3 total usable moves. That's more than any other Pokemon on my team. Team Magma shows up for the first time once the battle is over. That, on top of their humiliating defeat, sends them packing to Mount Chimney. But they steal the meteorite in their escape, leading May and me to chase them down. I take the cable car to the top of Mount Chimney, which just makes me think of that song by The Fray, which shows my age. At the summit, I find Team Magma trying to take down Team Aqua despite being greatly outnumbered. I guess I have to help this villainous team so that the other villainous team doesn't explode this volcano. The whole enemy of my enemy thing, I guess. Speaking of enemies, Archie's here and we have to stop him. It's unfortunate to have to put down another water-type trainer, but life isn't always beautiful. Archie leads with Mightyena and I choose Barkin. After a couple of hits, Mightyena roars Barkin back to his Pokeball and brings out Charles. He gets a single hit before getting the same treatment. I'm not sure why Archie is just using Roar here. I feel like the AI always prioritizes that move when it's usable. Anyway, I have to hard switch Edward since he has no usable moves. But Barkin's able to finish the pup with another fake out. This brings out Golbat. Naturally, I switch to George for what should be an easy fight. Bite does a ton of damage to the bat, but then George gets confused. After taking a crit and hitting himself once, George hits himself again and knocks himself out. For simplicity, I bring Barkin in again and finish off Golbat with Fake Out. Last is Sharpedo, who immediately scores a critical hit. Fortunately, Mega Drain gives Barkin plenty of health back. Even after hitting himself in confusion, a second Mega Drain is more than enough to defeat the shark and win the battle. Archie surrenders the meteorite and flees the scene. Then Maxie approaches us, implies that Archie's off to his next big scheme, and pursues the other villain. That means we can head down to Lava Ridge Town. But let's be honest, defeating Flannery is not going to be an issue for my team, even with my extremely limited moves, so let's skip to the next interesting fight. Norman. First up is his lead slacking. This guy has no chill. I lead with George to get an Intimidate on him. I then have him just start biting like a teething toddler. Eventually, Norman heals and then hits George with Fake Out. I take that opportunity to switch to Barkin. A combination of Fake Out and Mega Drains nearly takes down the first slacking, but I want to preserve Barkin and his Fake Out utility, so I swap for Charles, who manages to get the KO with Water Pulse. Second is Vigoroth, and I choose to keep Charles in. He uses a few Water Pulses to weaken the Sloth, but ultimately, Vigoroth is victorious. Poor Charles keeps getting the short end of the stick, but soon he'll reach his true potential. But of course, I send out Barkin for his signature Wombo combo, defeating Vigoroth. Norman sends out his signature slacking, so I swap in George for another Intimidate. And unfortunately for Norman, his big boy hits a Swagger, giving George a big power boost. This makes it laughably easy for George to defeat slacking with just a couple of bites, earning us our 5th gym badge. And then, an unexpected amount of feels happen. Norman is moved by me, his son, defeating him. Then Wally and his dad join our touching moment. Wally and I, Wally and Wallace, head off to Mauville together for the next stage of our journey. And the camera stays on our dads as they express their complicated feelings seeing us grow up. As a man whose father never expressed any similar emotions, who is now a very proud father, I love this little scene. It speaks to my heart in ways I genuinely didn't expect from a game for 10-year-olds. Anyway, now that we have the HM for Surf, I can explore most of the region. I do some quick backtracking to pick up some TMs. Toxic and Fiery Path, Double Team on Route 113, and Round in Mauville City. Although, to be honest, I probably won't use most of these. I can also expand the team. First, I visit Route 118 to pick up the Good Rod. Then, I immediately use it to find Carvana. Wallace uses a Sharpedo in the Pokemon World Tournament, so I catch the little fish and name him Steven. Next, we return to Route 114 and fish until I find a Barboach. This is one of Wallace's most used Pokemon, and in the manga, it has the name Philip. So, that's what I call this little guy. Lastly, I find a Wailmer in Slateport City. I catch the little lady and name her Victoria. With all our new encounters captured for the moment, I do some grinding and evolve Edward, Steven, and Philip into Tentacruel, Sharpedo, and Whiscash. With a new available roster and a variety of usable moves, I shuffle the team to include everyone with usable moves. The new team and I can finally move on, and immediately we run into Steven Stone again. He remembers me and asks about my team composition. How fabulous! What's less fabulous is that Team Aqua is up to some nonsense. This time it's a random grunt and freaking Jason Momoa. Seriously, this guy's absolutely massive. He's got to be like 7 feet tall. And how humiliating it must be to be beaten by a 5th grader and his dancing lily pad. Jason Momoa runs away, so embarrassed that he'll never dare to act in a good Hollywood film ever again. Route 119 is our next destination, and it's pouring rain. I love it, and so does the whole team. Barkin gets to utilize his Rain Dish ability, all our water moves get boosted, and Charles learns Waterfall and evolves into Sea King. What an exciting route. The excitement ends with May returning for another battle. Unfortunately for her, I have more than 2 usable moves now. George is able to eat all her Pokemon quickly, with only Wailmer surviving a hit. On her defeat, May gives us the HM for Fly, which we can't use until we defeat Winona. I mean, it's not a legal move for us to use at all, but let's get that badge anyway. Winona leads with a Swallow, and I choose Phillip to start. For arguably the first time, I'm not grievously overleveled for this battle, but I am overpowered. Rock Tomb nearly one-shots the lead bird, forcing Winona to waste her Hyper Potion. Phillip quickly finishes the job 2 turns later, which prompts Winona to send out her ace Altaria. I swap for George while the Cotton Ball buffs her defense. Despite doubling her defense, Ice Fang still takes out just over half its HP. That means that George can easily pick up the win the following turn. This brings in Pelipper. I switch back to Phillip, who buries the Seagull without much trouble. Winona's final Pokemon is Skarmory. Phillip continues dominating this battle by rusting the Metal Bird with a series of Water Pulses. That earns us badge number 6. Badge in hand, I take our team through Route 120 and 121, where we encounter Team Aqua. Again. They head off to Mount Pyre, so I should follow them to stop their shenanigans. I reach the summit as quickly as possible, but a bunch of grunts slow me down. Archie steals the blue orb from the mysterious shrine and leaves, trusting Aquaman to slow me down. Which I guess is literally true, as I have to take a tiny bit of time to defeat him. Once that's done, I need to get to Slateport City ASAP. To do that, I finish the trek to Lily Cove City and swap Anne out for the free Latias, whom I used to fly back to Slateport. I arrive just in time to witness Archie and Shelly steal a submarine. A couple other grunts slow us down again, but Captain Stern helps us get back to Lily Cove after the battle. It's nice to see some NPCs contributing to the story. But speaking of NPCs, May wants to battle once I'm back in town. Like, my sister, read the room. This is not the time. Georgie and Eddie take her improved team down with relative ease, because we got stuff to do. I can now head to Team Aqua's hideout, where I teleport around until I find the missing submarine. Did they mod it to resemble a Sharpedo? I love it! What I don't love is having to deal with Aquaman again. Edward easily defeats his Sharpedo with a single dazzling gleam. Sidebar, what's up with admins having incomplete teams? Come on, Nintendo, fill up those boss teams. Anyway, Shark Boy here managed to stall long enough for the submarine to depart. Meaning I need to find a way to follow. He then reveals his bromance with Archie, which I think is touching, actually. I'm glad these remakes added some character depth with scenes like this and the one with Wally's dad and Norman. With nothing else to do, I cross the sea to Moss Deep City, where I get the Super Rod to complete my collection. I then head north to Shoal Cave and quickly find Estelio. This blubbery boy is Richard, and he's the first of 4 encounters I need to find. Our second encounter is found on Route 128. I use the Super Rod at this unique rock formation and immediately pull up a Love Disc. This elegant Pokemon isn't anything special on the stats department, but it's a staple of Wallace's team. Her name is Elizabeth, which is my wife's middle name, coincidentally. For the third, I head back to Lily Cove City. There, using the Super Rod, I fish until I find perhaps one of the best Pokemon in Gen 1, Staryu. Well, Starmie is one of the best ones, but Staryu evolves into Starmie. You know what I mean. Their name is Henry, and I'm definitely adding them to the team ASAP. Lastly, we return to Route 119 and find Ranger Catherine. At night, around this rock, there is a 100% chance of finding a Feebas, no matter what rod you use. During the day, that spot moves to be under the bridge next to the Weather Institute. Anyway, I catch Feebas and name him John. That leaves just 1 encounter for the run, but I can't get them yet. On my way back to Moss Deep, I have 2 more side quests. First is the department store, where I can buy the TMs for Blizzard, Focus Blast, and Stone Edge. The second is perhaps a bit controversial. You see, I could spend hours grinding effort values, leveling up my new teammates, stealing heart scales to relearn moves, growing berries, making Pokeblocks, but instead, I spend a total of 5 minutes on PK Hex and update all my Pokemon in ways that are completely legit and 100 times faster. This video is already behind schedule, and I want to maintain my momentum when I do have time to work on it. If you don't like me using PK Hex, feel free to voice your opinion in the comments. But until I have an editor and the ability to make this my full-time job, I'm cutting out the most time-consuming activities whenever I can. All that being said, now I could update the team again. Sweet Elizabeth is here, sporting her full and final moveset. Richard and John also have full sets, though though they may change later. Henry can only legally use Surf, Victoria can't use Brine, and Steven can use half of his moves, Aqua Jet and Crunch. Time to challenge the next gym. This battle is unique in that it's a double battle. It's hard to believe that Pokemon didn't incorporate another multi-battle for a gym leader until 17 years later with Raihan in Sword and Shield. However, that's a much more difficult battle. Here, I only have to contend with Solrock and Lunatone. And for the sake of variety, challenge, and drama, I lead with Elizabeth and Victoria. I draw First Blood with Water Pulse, but then the Celestials set up Sunny Day and Light Screen, nullifying most of my coming damage. If not for that, Victoria's Water Spout would have easily cleared the field. Now, Tate and Liza are able to deal massive damage with Solar Beam and Psychic, while my ladies spritz her rocks like a toddler's water pistol. The siblings use both of their Hyper Potions to make matters worse, and Elizabeth quickly falls to Solar Beam. This allows me to bring in Steven, who would have cleaned up this battle from the beginning. Now that I think about it for a second, Sharpedo feels like a slightly strange team member for Wallace, who's obsessed with beauty. The vibe is just off compared to everyone else. Regardless, Stevie here is able to quickly take out both Solrock and Lunatone with Aqua Jet, especially once Sunny Day ends. That leaves us with just one more badge. Leaving the gym, a beam of ominous green light bursts from the sea on Route 128. Everyone else is freaking out about the end of the world, but Steven, Stone, not Sharpedo, and I have a little conclave at his place. We agree to head to the seafloor cavern together, but separately to stop whatever apocalypse Team Aqua is about to initiate. To do that, he gives me the HM for Dive and a set of scuba gear, both of which will be essential for reaching the cavern. Before I leave, I swap Steven, Henry, and Victoria for Anne, Barkin, and Edward. I then teach Dive to Anne, who unfortunately must continue literally carrying the run as our HM user. Anne and I quickly disembark for the seafloor, which helps to avoid any random or trainer encounters on the way. And it makes finding the seafloor cavern super easy, which it realistically should not be. I explore the cavern, picking up the TM for Earthquake along the way. I also get to reminisce on the old days of strength puzzles, which we haven't had in a while in a Pokemon game. This exploration culminates in finding leader Archie, who has freshly defeated Maxie. Now it's up to me to stop him, so that's what I'll do. I lead with Edward against Archie's Mightyena. A couple of dazzling gleams are plenty to take it out without much damage. Second is Muck. He and Edward start exchanging blows, Brine for Gunk Shot. Fortunately for me, once Muck is below half health, Brine's secondary ability makes it an easy W for Eddie. Third is Crobat, but Edward has had enough for right now. Richie tags in, but his best move is only Aurora Beam. If I had Ice Beam, this would be no contest. Richard puts in his best efforts to weaken Crobat, but he eventually falls to Acrobatics. I send in John next, who comfortably takes an Acrobatics before blasting the bat with Blizzard. That was more alliterative than I intended, but I'm not rewriting it. Archie's last Pokemon is Sharpedo, whom he Mega Evolves. I swap out for Elizabeth, who can totally defeat this monstrous shark and is not going to get immediately eaten. I definitely wasn't using her as a safe pivot to Mr. Barkin, who is perhaps most beautiful in his fully evolved shiny form. And I certainly didn't blast the shark to death with a single energy ball. Nope, this fight was 100% Elizabeth. You go, girl. Now that he's been defeated again, Archie monologues a bit about how his plan isn't over, which is exactly what would happen when a 10-year-old defeats an evil adult in a Pokemon battle. His admin Shelly shows up for a moment, but then she and Maxie just peace out when the cutscene starts, which I find quite funny. Archie's blue orb wakes up Kyogre, who immediately escapes and starts an apocalyptic rainstorm throughout the region. This is very bad, so Archie and Maxie head to Sootopolis to put a stop to it. In Sootopolis, we are joined by an alternate version of me, whom I have to admit is much more of a pretty boy. May also joins us briefly, really making this into an Avengers Assemble moment. But I still have to go into the Cave of Origin alone, which tracks. This journey ends with me donning the aqua suit and buffing myself with the red orb. I'm going to be honest, I still don't fully understand which orb is supposed to do what to which box legendary. Feel free to explain it in the comments. Anyway, Kyogre appears and the two of us explore under the sea. This has to be like the second time I've seen this cutscene in my life. It's so cool, and I like it a lot. But it ends with Kyogre undergoing great value Mega Evolution and challenging us to a battle. My best option by far is Mr. Barkin. Rain Dish helps keep him healthy, and he quadruple resists any of Kyogre's water moves. Oh, and most importantly, Energy Ball is an easy 2-hit KO. Defeated, Kyogre goes back into hibernation, I guess, which explosively ends the Superstorm. Some real Sharknado vibes here. But this means that I'm clear to get my last badge. And this battle is super anticlimactic. Barkin easily one-shots 4 of Wallace 2's Pokemon with Energy Ball, despite being underleveled. Then Eddie Toxic stalls Milotic, which is exacerbated by it trying to recover. I'm the superior Wallace here, and now I have all 8 badges. Plus the HM for Waterfall, which I need to finalize my team. Speaking of, I have one more encounter. I head back underwater and search around seaweed until I find it. Clamperl. Wallace has one in the manga, but it has no canon moves, so this is just an honorary mention. His name is James. And I have one more step before I head to the Pokemon League. I fly back to Dewford Town and visit the abandoned ship. Or Sea Mauville? Okay then. I make my way to the storage room where I find a Skitty doll and a bunch of gold. Most importantly, I find the TM for Ice Beam. Let's head to Evergrande City. I quickly traverse Victory Road for some last minute levels before running into Wally. He wants to have one last battle before the endgame, so I oblige. Wally and I lead with Altaria and Mr. Barkin respectively. I forgot to reteach Ice Beam to him, so I pivot to John, who puts the cloud on ice with a single hit. Wally then sends out Roselia, who should totally be a Roserade in this remake. Since he isn't, he gets exactly the same treatment. Third is Magneton, so I switch in Philip. He takes a couple of hits before obliterating the triplets with Earthquake, which is an unnecessary level of overkill due to Sturdy. Wally then sends out Delcatty, who immediately puts Phil to sleep. While he naps, I bring in Edward to take down the cat. He hits once before also taking a nap. Okay, time for plan C. John. He wipes out the cat's remaining health and stays in to fight Wally's ace, Gallade. Wally Mega Evolves his last Pokemon and sets up a Swords Dance. Surf does barely less than half, so that's a 3-hit KO. And if that wasn't bad enough, Mega Gallade's new speed lets him outspeed John, meaning Wally can take down the first of my Pokemon. Since Gallade has like 5 HP left, I send in my true ace, Mr. Barkin, who picks up the W with Fake Out. Truly the MVP of this run. Defeated, Wally gives me a useless rock and allows me to leave the cave. With that, I arrive at the Pokemon League. Now, let's build the final team. To do that, I'm looking at the encounters that are most common across Wallace's 5 teams. Milotic and Walrein appear in 4 out of 5 teams, and Whiscash is in 3 out of 5, so that's half our team. Our remaining options are Ludicolo, Seaking, Luvdisc, and Swampert. There's not really a fair way to do this, but here's what I'm thinking. Ludicolo adds some great type coverage, and really fits the vibe of Wallace. I've never used a Seaking, so let's give him a chance. And for the final slot, I'll choose Luvdisc. I already have a water ground type, and Swampert only has 2 usable moves without breeding. That means my final team is as follows. John the Milotic with Surf, Ice Beam, Disarming Voice, and Recover. Richard the Walrein with Blizzard, Surf, Body Slam, and Encore. Philip the Whiscash with Waterfall, Earthquake, Rock Tomb, and Zen Headbutt. Mr. Barkin the Ludicolo with Surf, Energy Ball, Fake Out, and Ice Beam. Charles the Seaking with Waterfall, Fury Attack, Aqua Ring, and Water Pulse. And Elizabeth the Luvdisc with Water Pulse, Draining Kiss, Attract, and Sweet Kiss. Let's take down the Pokemon League. Sydney is first of the Elite Four. I don't have many super effective moves, but John is able to single-handedly take down his entire team with a combination of Surf and Ice Beam. GG, buddy. Second is Phoebe and her Ghost Pokemon. I have literally no super effective moves available, so I just have to hit her hard. For some variety, I let Charles and Philip lead the charge here. It wasn't a difficult battle, and I'm glad the remake gave her a Dusknoir. Remakes need to take more creative liberties like that for bosses. Ice Mistress Glacia is third. I should have taught someone Rain Dance to counter her hail strategies, but Philip and Mr. Barkin still make quick work of her entire team. Last is Drake, the cliché master of dragons, but with a powerful ice type and 2 other Pokemon with Ice Beam, his team never stood a chance. With the Elite Four behind us, I can move on to the only battle that anyone cares about in the Pokemon League, the Championship Battle. This time against Steven Stone. So let's skip the banter and get right into it. Steven leads with Skarmory, and I'm giving Elizabeth a chance to do something. I infatuate the metallic bird and hope that's enough to give me a fighting chance. Unfortunately, Skarmory immediately hits Lizzie with Toxic, putting her on a very short timer. Skarmory gets to set up spikes before Infatuation starts slowing her down. But Lizzie can't deal much damage. She forces Steven to use his first full restore before falling to poison damage. I decide to send in Richard, who immediately ties the score with Blizzard. Steven brings out Aggron, who survives the surf thanks to Sturdy. Then the metallic dinosaur devastates Richie with Stone Edge, scoring a crit and taking Richie out immediately. Sorry, buddy. But speaking of buddies, now it's Barkin's turn. He steals the kill on Aggron since Steven saves his other full restore for later. Now we're all tied up again as Cradily comes in. I trust Barkin, so I attack with Ice Beam and manage to freeze the fossil. Barkin also does enough damage to take Cradily out on the following turn. Now I'm finally taking the lead. Steven sends out Armaldo, who threatens big damage with Cross Scissor. But Barkin hits with a Surf and immediately takes him out, forcing Steven to bring in Claydol. I want to save Barkin for later and set myself up for Metagross, so I switch to Phillip, which is a mistake for 2 reasons. First, Claydol sets up Reflect on the switch, but more importantly, Phillip is the only Pokemon on my team with a super effective move against Metagross. I test the damage on an incoming Earth Power and outgoing Waterfall, which is yet another mistake. Luckily, I've got 3 healthy Pokemon in the wings, so I bring in Charles. This underrated fish manages to flinch Claydol with Waterfall and burn another full restore, setting us up well for the final Pokemon. On top of that, Reflect fades, meaning Charles can pick up the KO on the following turn. This leaves Steven cornered into a 4v1. Unfortunately for me, his 1 is a Metagross, who immediately Mega Evolves and kills both Charles and Phillip. This could be bad. But I still have my 2 best Pokemon remaining, so I send out John for his debut in this battle. I take advantage of Metagross's recharging turn to deal some good damage with Surf. Steven goes for broke, hitting John with Giga Impact. But my Milotic is super tanky and hits like a hurricane, taking out Megagross with a second Surf. Honestly, I'm a little tiny bit bummed I didn't get the KO with Mr. Barkin, but I'll always take the W. With that, Steven Stone is defeated and I have claimed my status as champion. May shows up to give us some advice, which is bold for someone who has been soundly defeated every time we battled. Steven takes us to the Hall of Fame, where we dramatically pose with our team full of winners and Love Disc. This challenge was a fair amount of fun. It was nice to use some rarely seen Pokemon like Seaking and Whiscash. In hindsight, I think this challenge would have been more difficult if I hadn't limited my moves. It made for a unique limitation, but I was overleveled for so long. Let me know what you think in the comments. When I do character challenges, should I also limit my moves? Or is there another way to make the video challenging and unique? Biggest thanks to Mr. Barkin, my first Patreon supporter, and for everyone else, if you made it this far and want to support me more directly, use the link in the description to check it out. And make sure you're subscribed. Anyway, May suggests we end the journey together by traveling back to Little Root. So that's a wrap for this challenge. Next time, we're taking on... Wait a minute! I never picked up a bike! Where did I get this bike?